Republicans in Georgia are trying to make it harder to vote after President Biden flipped the state and Democrats won both Senate seats. GOP state lawmakers are pushing a sweeping election bill. It would put restrictions on early and absentee voting. Voting rights advocates are calling it a concerted effort to suppress the votes of black Georgians. The bill would ban counties from holding early voting on Sundays. Of course, Sunday is a popular day for black churchgoers to go out and vote during Souls to the Polls events. The bill would shrink the window of time that Georgians have to request an absentee ballot, and it would add a photo ID requirement. The locations of drop-off or ballot drop-off boxes would be restricted to early voting sites. The bill also cracks down on mobile voting booths, or buses in this case, really, which provided sort of pop-up voting locations in the Atlanta area, which is a Democratic stronghold. Of course, black voters and absentee voting helped propel Democrats to victory in Georgia, a state that hadn't voted for a Democratic presidential candidate in nearly 30 years. Steph Kite is a politics reporter for Axios. She co-wrote an article about new voter suppression proposals in dozens of GOP majority states, including Georgia, following the November election. Steph, thank you. You know, we're seeing these voter suppression proposals, specifically in states like Georgia that Democrats narrowly won in 2020. How possible is it that that could swing the outcome of future elections?
Thanks, Shep. Yeah, I mean, you look at the states where we're seeing the highest number of these restrictive bills get introduced, places like Arizona, and Pennsylvania, and Georgia. And those are all three states that Joe Biden won very narrowly in 2020. Just in 2016, Donald Trump won all three of those states. So, yeah, if these bills really do make it more difficult for people to vote or make it easier for mailed-in ballots to get rejected, when the margins are that close, you absolutely could see a difference in election outcomes in the future.
You know, following the November election, there was the big lie. There were the many baseless claims of voter fraud stemming from the Oval Office to state capitals. Are legislatures using those baseless claims, sort of that playbook and manufactured mistrust in the system, to push these changes?
They definitely are. You know, when we think of the repercussions of the claims that former President Trump made about the election, that there was mass fraud, I think a lot of us, including myself, will initially think of the siege on the Capitol on January 6th. But there are also longer-term repercussions. It doesn't stop on January 6th. That distrust that Trump started to sow in the election process is going to trickle down through the party. And I think we're seeing that with Republican-controlled legislatures eyeing these bills and moving forward on these bills that would make it more difficult for people to vote, and implementing requirements that have historically disproportionately impacted voters of color who are so critical in Joe Biden's election in 2020.
Voting rights activists are obviously fighting back, but is there any tooth to the fight?
I mean, we saw last year that Democrats were very successful in court when it came to fighting for expanding access to the ballot, especially expanding access to voting by mail because of the pandemic. So I think we're going to continue to see, you know, the big name Democratic attorneys fight this in various states. But it will be a question of whether they're able to see that same victory without the same level of concern surrounding the pandemic. And of course, Republicans control legislatures in most states, and that gives them a lot of control over voting rules.
Steph Kite from Axios, thank you. Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.